The smell of pine drifted through the open window, mixing with the faint metallic scent of rain gathering in the distance. Noah Drayton sat hunched over his desk, the yellow lamp casting a warm circle of light across the blueprints spread before him. His reading glasses had slipped down his nose again, and he pushed them back up with one knuckle, never taking his eyes off the structural calculations he'd been checking for the third time that evening. At 42, Noah had learned that patience was the architect's greatest tool. Every bridge he designed, every foundation he reinforced, required the same careful attention. Rush the work and people got hurt. Take your time, and everyone stayed safe. It was a philosophy that had served him well in his 20-year career, and one he'd try to pass on to his daughter whenever she'd sit beside him at this very desk, asking why he drew so many lines. The living room around him held the comfortable clutter of a life well lived. Lila's backpack slouched against the couch, stuffed with homework she'd promised to finish after dinner. A coffee mug sat cold on the side table, half empty from this morning. The television played quietly in the background, some news program Tessa had left on before heading upstairs an hour ago. Noah rotated his shoulders, feeling the stiffness that came from too many hours bent over plans. The Meridian Street Bridge project was due for final approval next week, and he wanted everything perfect. The town council didn't tolerate mistakes, and neither did he. His pen scratched across the paper, noting a minor adjustment to the load calculations. His phone buzzed against the wood, dancing slightly with the vibration. Noah glanced at the screen, and his chest tightened with immediate worry. Lila's name glowed there, her school photo smiling up at him. She should have been asleep at her friend's house by now. They dropped her off hours ago for a sleepover with Emma, the girl from her third-grade class who lived 3 streets over. He snatched up the phone, pressing it to his ear. "Lila? Baby, what's—" "Dad!" Her voice hit him like cold water, high and trembling with terror he'd never heard from her before. "Get out now. Please, Dad, just go. You have to." The line went dead. Noah stared at the phone, his heart hammering against his ribs. The blueprint beneath his hands suddenly meant nothing. He jabbed at the screen, trying to call back, but it went straight to voicemail. He tried again. Same result. "Tessa!" He called toward the stairs, already reaching for his keys. "Tessa, something's wrong with—" A sound stopped him cold. The back door, not the normal creak of someone opening it. A crash, wood splintering, the metallic scrape of the lock giving way under force. Noah spun toward the kitchen, and his body understood before his mind caught up. Someone was in the house. Someone who hadn't knocked. The phone call, Lila's warning, it suddenly made terrible sense. Heavy footsteps pounded across the kitchen tile. Noah lunged for the hallway, his chair toppling backward with a clatter. He had to get upstairs, had to reach Tessa. Had to. The figure appeared in the kitchen doorway. Black hoodie pulled low, face hidden in shadow. Big, at least 6 feet, broad-shouldered. Moving fast. "Wait," Noah managed, raising his hands. "Whatever you want." The man closed the distance in 3 strides. Noah saw the object in his hand too late. Something metal, heavy, swinging in a vicious arc toward his head. He tried to dodge, but his body moved through molasses. The impact was a white flash of agony, a crack that echoed inside his skull. His legs gave out. The floor rushed up to meet him, and the last thing Noah saw before darkness swallowed everything was his scattered blueprints, now spattered with something dark and wet. Then nothing. Sound returned first, a steady beeping, rhythmic and mechanical. Then sensation, a throbbing ache that seemed to encompass his entire head, pulsing in time with his heartbeat. The smell of antiseptic and starch. Clean sheets beneath his palms. Noah opened his eyes to blurred white light. He blinked, trying to focus. The ceiling tiles came into view, water-stained and familiar in the way all hospital ceilings are familiar. And 4-line snaked from his left arm. Monitors clustered around his bed, tracking vitals he couldn't quite parse through the fog in his mind. How long had he been out? The last clear memory was the man in the hoodie. The swing. The impact. After that, only fragments, voices, movement, pain. Someone had found him. Called an ambulance. The details hovered just out of reach, obscured by the pounding in his skull. "Daddy." The voice was small, uncertain. Noah turned his head carefully, and there she was. Lila sat in the vinyl chair beside his bed, her legs dangling well above the floor. She clutched her stuffed bear, the faded brown one he'd won for her at last summer's county fair, taking 15 throws at the milk bottle pyramid before finally knocking them all down. Her dark hair hung in tangles around her pale face, and her eyes were swollen and red-rimmed. "Baby," Noah croaked, his throat raw. "You okay?" She nodded, but tears spilled down her cheeks anyway. "I'm sorry. I tried to warn you. I called as soon as I heard, but I was too late." Noah tried to sit up, but pain lanced through his skull, forcing him back against the pillow. He gritted his teeth, waiting for the wave to pass. "Heard what? What happened?" Lila glanced toward the closed door, then leaned closer. Her voice dropped to barely a whisper, and something in that whisper made Noah's blood run cold despite the warmth of the hospital room. "I know who did it, Daddy." Her small hands twisted in the bear's worn fur. "It was Mom." The words didn't make sense. Noah blinked, certain he'd misheard, that the concussion was playing tricks on his comprehension. "What? Mom?" Lila's voice cracked, and she swiped at her eyes with the back of her hand. "I wasn't supposed to be home. I forgot my retainer case, so Emma's mom drove me back to get it. I came in through the front, and I heard Mom on the phone in her office. She didn't know I was there." Noah's mouth had gone dry. The beeping of the monitors seemed too loud now, intrusive. "Lila, are you sure you heard?" She was talking to Uncle Brian. Lila's eyes met his, and in them Noah saw a knowledge no 8-year-old should possess. She said, "He'll be gone by tomorrow. Just make it look random." And Uncle Brian said something about being careful, and Mom said you'd be home by 9, and that's when I knew. I knew she meant you. The hospital room tilted slightly, or maybe that was just Noah's brain trying to process what he was hearing. Tessa, his wife of 11 years. The woman who'd held his hand through his father's funeral, who'd stayed up all night when Lila had pneumonia, who'd kissed him goodbye this morning before he left for work. Uncle Brian. Not really Lila's uncle, just Brian Reeves, a contractor who'd helped them build their deck last summer. Friendly guy, always showing up with tools and jokes, staying for dinner when the work ran late. Tessa had mentioned him a few times recently, something about hiring him for a renovation project. "I ran back to Emma's and called you," Lila continued, her words tumbling out faster now, desperate. "But I was too scared to tell Emma's mom, because what if I was wrong? What if I just heard it wrong? But then the hospital called Emma's house because they couldn't find Mom, and Emma's mom brought me here, and," she sucked in a shaky breath. "Daddy, I wasn't wrong, was I?" Noah reached out, ignoring the pull of the 4 line, and took Lila's hand. Her fingers were cold and small in his. "You did exactly right, baby. You probably saved my life." The door swung open, and a nurse bustled in, her scrubs printed with cartoon bears. "Oh good, you're awake. How's the pain level, Mr. Drayton?" "On a scale of 1 to... Where's my wife?" Noah interrupted, his voice rougher than he intended. The nurse's smile faltered slightly. "She's in the waiting room. We limited visitors to just your daughter for now, but I can send her in if..." "No." Noah squeezed Lila's hand gently. "Not yet. I need a few more minutes." The nurse looked uncertain, but nodded. "I'll let Dr. Hammond know you're conscious. He'll want to check your cognitive function. Make sure there's no serious..." "I'm fine," Noah lied. His head felt stuffed with cotton and broken glass, but that pain was nothing compared to the one spreading through his chest. "Just give me a minute." When the nurse left, Noah turned back to Lila. His daughter. His reason for everything. She looked so small in that chair, still clutching her bear, still trusting him to fix this impossible thing she just dropped into his lap. "Listen to me carefully," he said quietly. "What you heard, don't tell anyone else. Not yet. Not the police, not the doctors. Especially not Mom. Can you do that?" Lila's eyes widened. "But shouldn't we? I need to be sure first. And I need to keep you safe while I figure this out." Noah managed what he hoped was a reassuring smile, despite the cold calculation already forming in the back of his mind. "Trust me." She nodded slowly. "Always. Good girl." He squeezed her hand once more, then released it. "Now I'll go tell the nurse she can send Mom in. And remember, you don't know anything. You just came home for your retainer and found out about the accident later. Okay, Lila whispered. She slipped off the chair and padded toward the door, pausing once to look back at him. Noah gave her what he hoped was a confident nod, and she disappeared into the hallway. Alone, Noah let his head sink back into the pillow. His mind raced despite the pounding ache. The phone call, the break-in, Lila's warning. It all fit together too perfectly to be coincidence or misunderstanding. Tessa wanted him dead. The thought should have felt impossible, but it didn't. It felt like the final piece of a puzzle he'd been ignoring for months. The distance between them, the way she'd started locking her phone, the unexplained errands, the financial questions she'd deflected. The door opened again, and there she was. Tessa looked perfect as always. Her auburn hair swept back in a neat ponytail, her makeup understated, her expression painted with exactly the right amount of concern. She wore the blue cardigan he'd bought her for Christmas, the one she said made her feel safe. Noah. Her voice cracked convincingly on his name. She rushed to the bedside, reaching for his hand. "Oh my God, you're awake," they said. The doctors weren't sure when. Noah let her take his hand, studying her face. The worry lines around her eyes. The tremor in her fingers. Was it real? Had any of it ever been real? "What happened?" he asked, keeping his voice weak and confused. "I remember someone breaking in, and then a robbery." Tessa perched on the edge of the bed, her thumbs stroking across his knuckles. "The police think it was a robbery. They took your wallet, your laptop. The back door was completely destroyed." She blinked rapidly, manufacturing tears that clung to her lashes but never quite fell. "If you hadn't fought back, if they'd—" She covered her mouth with her free hand. "I can't even think about it." Noah watched her performance, and something cold and final settled in his chest. The woman he'd loved, the mother of his child, sat here lying to his face about trying to have him killed. Every gesture calculated, every word chosen, every tear a manipulation. "Hey," he said softly, reaching up to cup her cheek. "I'm okay. I'm here." Tessa leaned into his palm, closing her eyes. "I was so scared." But beneath his hand, beneath the warmth of her skin, Noah felt her heartbeat racing against her throat. Not the rhythm of relief or love. The frantic pulse of fear. She was afraid he'd remember. Afraid Lila had told him something. Afraid her plan had failed, and now she'd have to live with the man she'd tried to kill. Noah smiled at her, soft and trusting. "I love you. I love you too," Tessa whispered. The lie hung between them, invisible to everyone but Noah. He let his hand fall away, watching her straighten and smooth her cardigan and paste her concerned wife expression back in place. "You should rest," she said, standing. "The doctor wants to keep you overnight for observation." "I'll stay here, of course. Lila can go home with your sister." "No." The word came out sharper than Noah intended, and he saw Tessa's eyes narrow slightly before she caught herself. He softened his tone. I'd feel better if Lila stayed with me. Just for tonight." She was pretty shaken up. Tessa hesitated, and Noah could see her calculating. Separating them meant more time for Lila to talk, to share whatever she might have seen or heard. But refusing would seem strange, suspicious. "Of course," Tessa finally said. "Whatever you need." She leaned down and kissed his forehead, her lips cool against his skin. Noah closed his eyes, breathing in her familiar perfume, jasmine and something citrus. How many times had he buried his face in her neck, breathing that scent, feeling safe and loved? When she pulled away, Noah kept his eyes closed, feigning exhaustion. He heard her gather her purse, heard her footsteps move toward the door. "Tessa." She paused. "Yes." "Did they catch who did it? The guy who broke in?" A beat of silence. "Not yet. Police are still investigating." Noah let the sound trail off sleepily. "Hope they find him soon." "Me too," Tessa said quietly. The door clicked shut behind her, and Noah opened his eyes, staring at the water-stained ceiling tiles. His head throbbed. His body ached. But his mind was clearing, sharp and cold as winter ice. She'd tried to kill him. His wife. The mother of his daughter. She'd hired someone to break into their home and murder him while Lila was supposed to be safely away at a sleepover. The question wasn't whether to fight back. Noah had learned a long time ago that when someone attacks you, you don't just defend, you ensure they can never attack again. The question was how to do it smart. How to protect Lila. How to make sure Tessa couldn't run, couldn't hide behind lawyers and reasonable doubt. Noah thought of the blueprints on his desk, the careful calculations required to make a structure stand. The same principles applied here. Gather evidence. Identify weak points. Apply pressure where it counted. Be patient. Be thorough. Be absolutely certain before you made your move. He had time. Tessa thought he was oblivious, trusting. She thought her plan had simply hit a snag, that the attacker would try again or that she'd find another way. She didn't know Lila had warned him. She didn't know Noah was already 10 steps ahead, building his case the way he built his bridges, one careful, calculated piece at a time. The door opened again, and Lila slipped back in, her bear tucked under her arm. She climbed back into the chair, her eyes questioning. Noah gave her a small nod. She'd done well. Better than well. His brave, smart girl had saved him, and now he would return the favor. He would dismantle Tessa's plan piece by piece. He would protect his daughter, and he would make sure that the woman who'd tried to destroy their family paid for every lie, every manipulation, every calculated betrayal. Get some sleep, baby, he said quietly. Tomorrow we go home. Lila curled up in the chair, hugging her bear close. Within minutes, her breathing evened out, and Noah was left alone with his thoughts and the steady beeping of hospital machines. He didn't sleep. Instead, he planned. 2 days later, Noah's truck rolled down Pinecrest Lane toward their house, and everything about the familiar street felt wrong. The aspen trees lining the road seemed too still. The afternoon sunlight too bright. Even the air tasted different through the open window, thinner, sharper, like breathing just before a storm breaks. Noah's fingers tightened on the steering wheel. The doctor had cleared him that morning after extensive cognitive tests, brain scans, and a lecture about monitoring for post-concussion symptoms. His head still ached, a dull throb beneath the bandages wrapped around his skull, but pain was manageable. Pain was just information. What mattered now was staying alert, staying focused. Lila sat buckled in the passenger's seat, her backpack at her feet, her bear clutched in her lap. She hadn't said much since they'd left the hospital. Neither had Noah. They developed a silent understanding over the past 48 hours, careful in what they said, what they showed, always aware that Tessa might be listening. Their house came into view, a modest 2-story craftsman painted sage green with white trim. Noah had designed the deck himself, rebuilt the porch last spring. He'd installed Lila's swing set in the backyard, planted the rose bushes Tessa claimed to love. Every beam and board held his sweat, his care, his belief that he was building something permanent. Now it looked like a trap. Tessa's sedan sat in the driveway. As Noah parked beside it, the front door opened, and there she was, framed in the doorway like a photograph. She wore jeans and a cream sweater, her hair loose around her shoulders. She dressed down, Noah realized, making herself look relaxed, casual, non-threatening. Just a worried wife welcoming her husband home. No, she hurried down the porch steps as he climbed out of the truck. Let me help you. I'm fine. He said it gently, offering a tired smile. Doc says I'm harder to break than I look. Tessa laughed, but it sounded thin. She pulled him into a hug, and Noah forced himself not to stiffen. Her arms wrapped around him, her cheek pressed against his chest. He could feel her heart beating, fast, irregular. Afraid. Good. I'm so glad you're home, she murmured into his shirt. The house has been too quiet without you. Noah stroked her hair, playing his part. Missed you too. Lila had already grabbed her backpack and headed inside, her eyes downcast. Smart girl. Stay invisible, stay quiet. Let the adults play their games. Tessa pulled back, studying Noah's face. How's the pain? Are you taking the medication they prescribed? It's manageable. Noah nodded toward the house. Let's get inside. I could use some real coffee instead of whatever hospital sludge they were serving. Inside, the house still smelled like home. Coffee from this morning, the lavender spray Tessa used in the linens, the faint mustiness of old books in the living room. But overlaying it all was something else, something Noah couldn't quite name. Tension, maybe. Or guilt. The scent of secrets going rancid. The living room looked exactly as Noah had left it, minus his blueprints and scattered papers. Someone had cleaned up, scrubbed away the blood, no doubt, right at his chair, erased the evidence of violence as if it had never happened. I straightened up a bit, Tessa said, following his gaze. I hope that's okay. I couldn't stand looking at it. Of course. Noah walked to his desk, running his fingers along the smooth wood. The surface was spotless. Too spotless. They find anything? The police? Not much. Tessa moved to the kitchen, her voice carrying through the open archway. They dusted for prints, took some photos. Said robberies like this are common lately. People targeting houses near the lake, looking for valuables. She appeared in the doorway, 2 mugs in her hands. They think you surprised him. That's why he attacked. Noah accepted the coffee she offered, noting how her hands trembled slightly. Lucky I have a hard head. Lucky, Tessa echoed. She settled on the couch, tucking her feet beneath her. Noah, I've been thinking, maybe we should look into a security system. Cameras, better locks. I can't sleep knowing someone could just break in like that. Good idea. Noah sat in his desk chair, testing how it felt to be back in this spot. His head throbbed in time with his pulse, but he ignored it. I'll call around tomorrow. Get some quotes. They sipped coffee in companionable silence, and Noah observed his wife over the rim of his mug. She kept tucking her hair behind her ear, left side, always the left side. A nervous tell she'd had since college. Her eyes darted to him, then away, then back. Checking his reaction, measuring his suspicion. She thought she was hiding it well. She wasn't. Where's Lila? Tessa asked suddenly. Upstairs. Probably in her room. Noah set his mug down. She's been quiet since. Everything. I think it scared her more than she's letting on. I'll talk to her. Tessa stood. Make sure she knows she's safe. Actually, Noah said carefully, let her decompress for a bit. She'll come talk when she's ready. Tessa froze mid-step. For just a second, her mask slipped, and Noah saw the flash of calculation behind her eyes. She wanted access to Lila. Wanted to know what the girl might have said, might have seen. Wanted to ensure their stories aligned. You're right, Tessa said finally. She needs space. We all do. She moved toward the stairs. I'm going to take a shower. Shout if you need anything. Will do. Noah watched her climb the stairs, her movements just slightly too controlled. When he heard the bathroom door close and water start running, he stood and moved quickly. The office was Tessa's domain, a small room off the living room where she graded papers and took calls from concerned parents about their teenagers' futures. Noah normally didn't intrude. Privacy had always been a cornerstone of their marriage. But privacy was a luxury afforded to people who weren't trying to murder you. The desk was neat. Too neat. Tessa had never been this organized. Post-it notes usually littered her space. Coffee rings stained the papers. Pens scattered across every surface. Now everything sat in perfect alignment. Laptop closed and centered, papers stacked with military precision, pens corralled in their holder. She cleaned up, removed evidence. Noah opened the top drawer. Office supplies, nothing suspicious. Second drawer, files on students, recommendation letters, appointment schedules. Third drawer, locked. His eyes narrowed. They'd never locked drawers from each other before. Upstairs, the shower shut off. Noah had maybe 5 minutes before Tessa would be back downstairs. He scanned the desk, looking for the key, but finding none. He needed tools. Time. A better plan. Instead, he pulled out his phone and snapped photos. The pristine desk. The locked drawer. The filing cabinet in the corner. Documentation. Evidence. Building his case one piece at a time. Daddy. Noah spun. Lila stood in the doorway, her bear dangling from one hand. Hey, baby. He slipped his phone into his pocket. What's up? She glanced toward the stairs, then stepped into the office and closed the door most of the way. I remembered something else. Noah knelt down to her level, ignoring the spike of pain in his head. What is it? When I heard Mom on the phone, she said something about money. That Uncle Brian wanted more, and she told him he'd get it after everything was done. Noah's jaw clenched. So Brian was being paid. This wasn't passion or anger. This was a transaction. Murder for hire, calculated and cold. Did she say how much? Lila shook her head. Just that it was enough to start over. That's what she said. Enough for both of us to start over somewhere far away. Start over. The words echoed in Noah's mind, pieces clicking into place. Tessa wasn't just trying to get rid of him. She was planning to disappear with Brian. Take the life insurance, fake some grief, and vanish into a new life somewhere sunny and far from the questions. Except Noah hadn't died, and now Tessa was trapped, living with her intended victim, wondering how long she could maintain the charade before either trying again or being caught. You did good remembering that. Noah pulled Lila into a gentle hug. But listen, we have to be really careful now, okay? We can't let Mom know you heard anything. We can't let her suspect we're suspicious. I know. Lila's voice was muffled against his shoulder. I can pretend. I've been pretending since it happened. I know you can, baby. You're the bravest person I know. Noah pulled back, meeting her eyes. But if she tries to separate us, if she wants to take you somewhere or send me somewhere, you come tell me immediately. Don't be alone with her if you can help it. Lila nodded solemnly. What are you going to do? Good question. Noah stood, his mind racing through possibilities. Call the police? Tell them his 8-year-old daughter overheard a conversation that might implicate her mother in attempted murder? They'd interview Tessa, who would deny everything. They'd look for evidence, finding none. They might even suggest Noah was suffering from post-concussion paranoia. No, he needed proof. Hard, irrefutable proof. He needed to be methodical, patient, thorough, all the things that had made him a successful engineer. He needed to outsmart her. I'm going to find the truth, Noah said quietly. And then I'm going to make sure you're safe, no matter what it takes. Footsteps creaked on the stairs. Tessa finished with her shower. Go on, Noah whispered, giving Lila a gentle push. Act normal. Just a regular afternoon. Lila nodded and slipped out of the office, heading back upstairs to her room. Noah emerged a moment later, settling back at his desk with his coffee as if he'd never moved. Tessa appeared at the bottom of the stairs, her hair damp and loose around her shoulders. She'd changed into yoga pants and an oversized t-shirt. Comfortable, domestic, safe. Feel better? Noah asked. Much. She stretched, then moved to the couch. What do you want for dinner? I was thinking maybe we could order from that Italian place you love. Celebrate you being home. Sounds perfect. They spent the evening performing normalcy. Ordered pasta. Watched a movie Lila picked. Something animated with talking animals. Tessa sat close to Noah on the couch, her hand resting on his knee, her head occasionally leaning against his shoulder. To anyone watching, they looked like a family recovering from trauma together, growing closer in the aftermath of violence. But beneath the surface, Noah's mind worked like a calculator, running through scenarios and probabilities. He needed access to Tessa's computer, her phone, her bank records. He needed to find Brian, to understand the full scope of their plan. He needed to move carefully, leaving no trace that he suspected anything. Most of all, he needed time. As the movie's credits rolled, Lila yawned dramatically. I'm tired. Bedtime, Tessa agreed, standing. Come on, I'll tuck you in. Actually, Lila said quickly, can Daddy do it? I want to hear the bridge story. The bridge story, a tale Noah had made up years ago about a magic bridge that connected dreams to reality. He told it to Lila every night when she was younger, until she'd grown too old for bedtime stories. Or so he'd thought. Tessa's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. Of course. I'll clean up down here. Noah followed Lila upstairs, his hand trailing along the banister he'd installed when they'd first bought the house. In her room, walls painted purple at her insistence, glow-in-the-dark stars stuck to the ceiling. Lila climbed into bed and waited until Noah sat on the edge of the mattress. The bridge story? He asked softly. I needed an excuse, she whispered back. I don't want her touching me. Not now that I know. Noah's heart clenched. 8 years old, and already learning that the people you trust most can be the ones who hurt you deepest. I understand, baby. You're doing so well. Just a little longer, okay? How much longer? I don't know yet, but I promise you I'm working on it. I'm going to fix this. Lila studied his face in the dim glow of her nightlight. Will we have to go away? If she gets in trouble? Maybe. Would that be okay with you? She considered this, then nodded. As long as you're there. Always, Noah promised. He tucked her blankets up under her chin, the way she liked. Now get some sleep. School tomorrow. Do I have to go? Yes. Normal routine, remember? We don't let her know anything's changed. Lila sighed but nodded. Noah kissed her forehead, breathing in the familiar scent of her strawberry shampoo, and stood to leave. Daddy. Her voice was small in the darkness. Be careful. You too, baby. Downstairs, Tessa had indeed cleaned up, the living room reset to its usual order. She stood at the sink, rinsing plates, her back to Noah. She settle okay? Tessa asked without turning. Out like a light. Noah moved to stand beside her, picking up a dish towel. This has been hard on her. On all of us. Tessa handed him a dripping plate. But we'll get through it. We always do. They worked in silence, the old choreography of their marriage. Wash, rinse dry, put away. How many times have they stood here like this, shoulders nearly touching, moving in synchronized rhythm? 1,000? More? Noah watched Tessa's reflection in the dark window above the sink. Her face looked tired, drawn, stressed. But underneath the fatigue, he saw something else. Determination. The set of her jaw, the tightness around her eyes. She hadn't given up. She was just recalculating, adjusting her strategy. The game had begun. Noah dried the last plate and set it carefully in the cabinet. I'm exhausted. Think I'm going to turn in early. Good idea. You need rest. Tessa touched his arm, her fingers gentle. Noah, I'm really glad you're okay. I don't know what I'd do if. She left the sentence hanging, and Noah wondered if she was playing her part or if some small piece of the woman he'd married still felt conflicted about what she tried to do. Maybe both. People were complicated, capable of holding multiple truths simultaneously. She could love him and still want him dead. Could mourn what they'd had while planning to destroy it completely. Me too, he said, admitted in a way she'd never understand. In bed, Noah lay perfectly still, listening to Tessa's breathing beside him. She'd fallen asleep quickly, or at least was pretending to sleep, which amounted to the same thing. The house settled around them, with familiar creaks and whispers. His head throbbed, but Noah's mind was crystal clear. Tomorrow he'd start gathering evidence. He'd check their finances, search for records of cash withdrawals or unusual transactions. He'd find a way into that locked drawer. He'd track down Brian Reeves and start documenting his connection to Tessa. He'd be patient, methodical, ruthless, because Tessa had made a critical mistake. She tried to kill him and failed. She'd shown her hand too early. And now Noah knew exactly what game they were playing and what the stakes were. Winner takes everything. Loser loses it all. Noah closed his eyes, not to sleep, but to think, to plan. The pieces were already moving on the board. He just needed to position them correctly before making his final move. The hunt had begun. Morning arrived cold and gray, clouds hanging low over the mountains. Noah woke before his alarm, Tessa's side of the bed already empty. He heard water running downstairs, coffee brewing, the normal sound of household waking up. For anyone else, just another Tuesday. For Noah, day one of his investigation. He dressed carefully, moving slowly to avoid aggravating his still healing head. The bandages would come off in a few days, the doctor had said. For now, they served as a visible reminder of what had happened, a prop in the theater he and Tessa were performing. Downstairs, Lila sat at the kitchen table, pushing cereal around her bowl without eating. Tessa moved between the counter and the refrigerator, packing lunches, checking papers, her movements efficient and practiced. Morning, Noah said, kissing the top of Lila's head as he passed. Sleep okay? Lila nodded, but didn't look up. Tessa glanced over her shoulder. Coffee's fresh. I'm running late. Early staff meeting about the new counseling protocol. Can you handle drop-off? Sure. Noah poured himself a mug, black and strong. You need me to pick up 2? No, I should be done by 3. I'll get her. Tessa zipped Lila's backpack, then checked her watch. Okay, I really have to run. Love you both. She kissed Lila's cheek, squeezed Noah's arm, and was gone in a whirl of perfume and purpose. The front door closed, her Her car started, gravel crunched under tires as she backed out. Noah waited until the sound faded completely before sitting down across from Lila. "Eat something, baby. You need your strength." Lila finally looked up, her eyes red-rimmed. "I had a nightmare about the man who hurt you coming back." Noah reached across the table and took her hand. "He's not coming back. I promise." "How do you know?" "Because I'm going to make sure of it." Noah squeezed her fingers gently. "Today, while you're at school, I'm going to start looking for proof of what Mom and Brian did. When I find it, we'll go to the police, and they'll make sure no one can hurt us again." "What if you don't find anything?" "Then I'll keep looking. I won't stop until you're safe." Noah released her hand. "But I need you to be brave for one more day, okay? Can you do that?" Lila straightened her shoulders. "I can do it. That's my girl." After dropping Lila at school, watching her join the stream of children flooding through the double doors, her backpack bouncing against her shoulders, Noah drove back home through streets he'd driven 1,000 times. But now he saw them differently. Every corner held potential witnesses. Every store might have cameras. Every detail mattered. At home, he stood in the empty house and listened. Silence. True privacy for the first time since waking up in the hospital. Noah started with the obvious place. Their bedroom. Tessa's nightstand. The drawer slid open easily, revealing the expected clutter. Hand lotion, lip balm, a bookmark, a tangle of hair ties. Noah photographed everything before moving items aside. Beneath the debris, his fingers found what they were looking for. A second phone. Small, cheap, a prepaid burner. The kind of phone you bought with cash when you didn't want calls traced. Noah powered it on, his heart hammering. Locked with a passcode. He tried obvious combinations. Lila's birthday. Their anniversary. Tessa's birthday. Nothing worked. 3 more tries, and he'd risk locking it completely. Noah set it aside and kept searching. The closet next. Tessa's side, behind the shoe organizer where she thought he'd never look. Nothing but dust and forgotten handbags. Then the bathroom. Tessa's toiletry bag, usually carried on trips. He unzipped it, finding makeup and travel-sized bottles and a flash drive. Small, black, unmarked. Noah plugged it into his laptop in the home office. One folder, labeled only with a date. 3 weeks ago. Inside, scanned documents. Bank statements from an account Noah didn't recognize. Tessa's name, but at a different bank. The balance made his breath catch. $75,000 withdrawn in cash 2 weeks before the attack. The deposit history showed a steady drain over 6 months. Their joint savings, their emergency fund. Money skimmed so slowly Noah hadn't noticed. She'd been planning this for half a year. He copied everything to his own drive, returned the original to its hiding place, and kept searching. The locked drawer in the office proved more challenging. Noah tried picking it with tools from his workshop, his hands steady despite the rage building in his chest. After 20 minutes, the lock clicked open. Inside, a notebook. Spiral-bound, cheap, the kind you'd buy at any drugstore. Noah flipped through pages filled with Tessa's handwriting. Notes, plans, dates and times, his schedule, when he'd be home, when Lila would be away, the optimal time for an accident. And there, on the last page with writing, Brian says $100,000 total, $75,000 up front, $25,000 after. Life insurance, $500,000. House, $340,000 equity. Investments, $125,000. Split, enough to disappear. Mexico, Canada, need new IDs. Noah's hand shook as he photographed every page. The notebook went back in the drawer, locked again, leaving no trace he'd ever been there. But the evidence now lived on his drive. Proof, motive, planning. Everything he needed to show the police that this wasn't an accident or a random robbery. This was attempted murder, carefully orchestrated by his wife and her lover. Except he wasn't done yet, because Noah wanted more than justice. He wanted Tessa to understand what she'd tried to do, what she'd failed to do. He wanted her to feel the trap closing around her the way he'd felt it closing around him in those seconds before the blow landed. He wanted her to know defeat. Noah spent 3 more days playing his role perfectly. Loving husband, concerned father, recovering victim. He went through the motions, made coffee, drove carpool, smiled at Tessa across the dinner table. And while he performed, he gathered, photographed, documented, built his case piece by piece until it was airtight and irrefutable. On Friday evening, he told Tessa he was taking Lila to stay with his sister for the weekend. She needs a break from all this, he explained, loading Lila's overnight bag into the truck. And honestly, so do I. Thought maybe we could have the house to ourselves. Reconnect. Tessa's eyes lit up with something that might have been relief or might have been calculation. That sounds really nice, actually. I've been wanting to talk. Really talk. Me too. Noah kissed her cheek, tasting perfume and lies. I'll be back in a couple hours. He drove Lila to his sister Beth's house on the other side of town, a ranch-style home with a sprawling lawn where Beth's 3 kids were already playing despite the growing darkness. Beth met them at the door, her expression tight with concern Noah had put there with a careful phone call the day before. You sure about this? Beth asked quietly as Lila ran inside to join her cousins. Positive. Just keep her close. Don't let Tessa pick her up, no matter what excuse she gives. No, what's going on? You said it was complicated, but I'll explain everything soon. I promise. Noah gripped his sister's shoulder. Right now, I just need you to trust me and keep Lila safe. Beth searched his face, then nodded. Okay, but you call me the second this is over. Will do. Back in his truck, Noah didn't drive home. Instead, he headed for the lake, specifically for the lake house he and Tessa had built 5 years ago. It sat on 2 acres of pine forest, isolated and quiet, a weekend retreat they'd used maybe 10 times since construction finished. The perfect place for a confrontation. Noah parked behind the cabin, out of sight from the road, and let himself in through the side door. The interior smelled musty from disuse, furniture covered in sheets, windows filmed with dust. He moved through the space methodically, uncovering the living room furniture, turning on lights, setting the stage. Then he sat in the armchair facing the door and pulled out his phone. The burner phone. He'd figured out Tessa's passcode 2 days ago. Lila's birthday backward, predictably sentimental. The messages between Tessa and Brian had painted the full picture. The planning, the payoff, the timeline. Everything Noah needed. Now he composed a new message, sent from Tessa's burner to Brian's number. It's done. Come to the lake house. Bring the rest of the money. We need to talk about next steps. Come alone. Noah hit send and watched the message status change to delivered, then read. 3 dots appeared. Brian was typing. On my way. 30 minutes. Perfect. Noah set the phone on the coffee table next to a small digital voice recorder he'd bought with cash that morning. Then he pulled his own phone out and navigated to the cloud folder where he'd stored all his evidence, bank statements, photographs of Tessa's planning notebook, screenshots of their messages. With a few taps, he shared the entire folder with the local police department's tip line, set to send automatically at midnight if he didn't cancel it. A dead man's switch. Insurance. Headlights swept across the windows. Noah settled back in the chair, his hands resting calmly on the armrests. His head still ached faintly where he'd been struck, but the pain felt distant now. Unimportant. Everything he'd built over the past 4 days led to this moment. The door opened. Tessa stepped through first, clutching a canvas duffel bag. She wore dark jeans and a black jacket, her hair pulled back severely. Behind her came Brian Reeves, 6 feet of muscle and guilt, his hands stuffed in his pockets, his eyes darting around the dim interior. They both froze when they saw Noah sitting calmly in the armchair, the lamp beside him casting his face in stark relief. Hello, Tessa, Noah said quietly. Brian. Tessa's face drained of color. The duffel bag slipped from her fingers, hitting the floor with a heavy thud. Brian took an instinctive step backward, his hand moving toward his jacket pocket. Don't. Noah's voice cut through the shock. Whatever you're reaching for, I promise you don't want to pull it out. Brian's hand froze. Noah, Tessa whispered. What are you? How did you? No. Noah leaned forward slightly. Sit down. Both of you. We have a lot to talk about. For a moment, nobody moved. The silence stretched taut, ready to snap. Then Brian shuffled to the couch, his movements jerky and nervous. Tessa followed, lowering herself onto the cushions like her legs might give out. Noah reached forward and pressed record on the voice recorder sitting on the coffee table. The tiny red light began blinking. "Let's start with the truth," Noah said calmly. "All of it, beginning with why you decided I needed to die." Tessa's mouth opened, closed, opened again. "Noah, it's not. You don't understand. Try me." The silence that followed was broken only by Brian's ragged breathing. Tessa's eyes darted between Noah's face and the voice recorder, calculating, still trying to find a way out, still searching for the right lie. Noah had all night. He'd waited 4 days already. He could wait forever if necessary. Finally, Tessa spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. It wasn't supposed to happen like this, but it did. Noah's tone remained level, empty of emotion. "You hired Brian to break into our house and kill me while Lila was safely away at a sleepover. You withdrew $75,000 in cash to pay him. You've been planning this for 6 months, maybe longer. You documented my schedule, tracked my movements, waited for the perfect opportunity." He paused. "Did I miss anything?" Tessa's face crumpled. "How do you know all that? Because you got sloppy. Or maybe you thought I was too trusting, too stupid to notice." Noah's eyes moved to Brian. "You hit me with a pipe wrench. Gave me a nasty concussion. The police think you were just a random burglar, but we both know better, don't we?" Brian's jaw worked, but no sound came out. His hands clenched into fists on his knees. "Say it," Noah commanded softly. "I want to hear you admit what you did." "I didn't mean to," Brian started. "Don't." Noah's voice cracked like a whip. "Don't lie to me. Not now. You took my money, walked into my house, and tried to bash my skull in. Own it." Brian's shoulders sagged. Yeah, I did it. "Thank you." Noah turned back to Tessa. "Your turn." "Why?" Tessa's eyes were wet, but Noah felt nothing looking at her tears. She'd cried at their wedding. She'd cried when Lila was born. She cried at sappy movies and sad songs. Her tears meant nothing now. "I fell out of love with you," Tessa said, each word hitting like stones. "Years ago. I tried to make it work, tried to feel what I used to feel, but it was gone. And then I met Brian, and so divorce me." Noah's voice remained flat. "Split our assets like a normal person. You didn't need to kill me to leave me." "Yes, I did." The words burst out of Tessa, raw and desperate. The life insurance, the house, the investments, everything was tied up together. A divorce would leave us both barely scraping by, especially with lawyers' fees and splitting custody. "But if you died accidentally," she trailed off, seeming to realize what she was saying. "If I died accidentally, you get everything. $500,000 in life insurance. The house paid off. Our savings. And you could run off with Brian to start fresh somewhere sunny, somewhere far from questions." Tessa nodded slowly, her tears falling freely now. "I'm sorry. God, no, I'm so sorry. I never wanted to go this far. I just wanted freedom, money, a way out that didn't inconvenience you." Noah stood, and both Tessa and Brian flinched backward. "You wanted me dead because it was easier than having an uncomfortable conversation. Because you're fundamentally selfish and cruel." "Noah, please. Quiet." The command in his voice silenced her immediately. Noah walked to the window, looking out at the dark lake beyond. How many nights had he and Tessa sat on the dock out there, planning their future? How many promises had they made under those stars? All of it was ash now. He turned back to face them. "Here's what's going to happen. In about 30 minutes, the police are going to receive a comprehensive file documenting your attempted murder. Bank records showing the cash withdrawal. Photographs of your planning notebook. Screenshots of your messages coordinating the attack. Everything." Tessa gasped. "You can't." "Already did. It's set to send automatically unless I stop it." Noah checked his watch, which gives you exactly 28 minutes to explain yourselves fully on that recording before your lives are over. Brian surged to his feet. "You're recording us? You son of a..." "Sit. Down." The command stopped Brian mid-step. He looked at Noah's face, and whatever he saw there made him sink back onto the couch. "Both of you are going to confess. Every detail, every plan, every dollar. And when the police arrive, you're going to surrender peacefully." Noah's voice never rose above conversational level, but something in it made the room feel colder. Or, I'll let the file send anyway, and you run. Your choice. You'd let us run? Tessa asked, disbelieving. Noah smiled. It was not a kind expression. No, I'd chase you. And I'd make sure every day of your life afterward was spent looking over your shoulder, wondering when I'd finally turn you in. Is that what you want? Or would you rather get it over with tonight? The silence that followed was answer enough. Sirens wailed in the distance, getting closer. Tessa's head snapped up. You called them already. You lied about the file. No, Noah said calmly. I didn't call them. Understanding dawned on Tessa's face, followed by horror. The burner phone. You sent those messages from my phone. I did. Noah pulled Tessa's burner from his pocket, showing her the screen. Messages to Brian. Messages to Tessa's own regular phone number. And one final message sent 20 minutes ago to the local police. 911 emergency. Man with weapon at Lake House. 427. Pine Shore Road. Please hurry. You set us up, Brian said, his voice hollow. No. Noah dropped the phone on the coffee table. You set yourselves up. I just made sure you couldn't escape the consequences. The sirens were louder now, multiple vehicles converging on the isolated cabin. Red and blue lights began flashing through the windows, painting the walls in garish colors. Noah walked to the door and opened it, raising his hands to show they were empty. Police, a voice shouted from outside. Come out with your hands up. It's Noah Drayton, he called back. The homeowner. I'm coming out. There are 2 more people inside. He stepped onto the porch slowly, hands still raised. Flashlights blinded him, and officers rushed forward, weapons drawn. On the ground, Noah complied, lowering himself carefully while explaining. My wife and her accomplice are inside. They're the ones who attacked me 4 days ago. I have evidence. The voice recorder on the coffee table has their confession. The officers secured him quickly, checking for weapons, then moved into the house. Shouts. Movement. Brian and Tessa were brought out in handcuffs, both looking shell-shocked and defeated. As they were loaded into separate patrol cars, Tessa turned her head, meeting Noah's eyes across the porch. No words passed between them, but Noah saw everything he needed to in her expression. The realization that she'd lost, that every step of her plan had unraveled, that the man she tried to kill had outmaneuvered her completely. Noah looked away first. She wasn't worth his attention anymore. A detective approached, helping Noah to his feet. Mr. Drayton? I'm Detective Ramirez. We need to get your full statement. But first, are you all right? I will be, Noah said, and meant it. 3 weeks after the arrests, Noah stood at the edge of the lake with Lila beside him. The morning sun painted the water gold and pink, and a light breeze carried the scent of pine through the air. The trial had been swift. With Noah's evidence and their recorded confessions, Tessa and Brian had both pleaded guilty to attempted murder, conspiracy, and fraud. Tessa received 15 years. Brian got 20. Neither would walk free until Lila was in her 20s. Do you think about her? Lila asked quietly, her hand tucked into Noah's. Mom. Noah considered the question carefully. He thought about Tessa a lot over the past 3 weeks. About the woman she'd been when they met, full of laughter and dreams. About the woman she'd become, capable of coldly planning his death. About whether he'd missed signs, whether he could have changed things. But mostly he thought about how thoroughly she'd underestimated him. How she believed him weak, trusting, easy to manipulate. How she'd never imagined that the quiet man who built bridges and fixed problems could turn those same skills against her. Sometimes, he admitted, but not the way I used to. Do you hate her? Noah looked down at his daughter, seeing the same question he'd asked himself 100 times reflected in her eyes. Hate was easy. Hate was simple. But hate also meant caring, still being connected, still letting Tessa have power over his emotional life. No, he said finally. I just don't forgive her. Lila nodded slowly, processing this. Good, because I don't either. They stood in silence for a moment, watching the water. Then Noah pulled a small key from his pocket and held it out to Lila. What's this? That's for the new house. I found us a place in town, closer to your school. 3 bedrooms, big backyard, good neighbors. Just us. Lila took the key carefully, turning it over in her palm. A fresh start. Exactly. No more looking over our shoulders. No more pretending. Just you and me building something real. I like that. Lila closed her fingers around the key, then wrapped her arms around Noah's waist in a fierce hug. You're safe now, Dad. Noah hugged her back, his chin resting on the top of her head. We both are, baby. We both are. As they turned to walk back to the truck, Noah glanced once more at the lake house in the distance. It would sell eventually, along with the family home. Those spaces held too many lies now, too many ghosts. But the future was clean, unwritten, full of possibility. Noah had learned something important over these past weeks. He'd learned that patience and precision could defeat violence and betrayal. That evidence and planning could bring justice where rage and revenge would only bring ruin. That protecting the people you loved sometimes meant becoming harder, colder, more calculating than you'd ever imagined you could be. He'd become the kind of man who could sit calmly in a chair while his wife walked into a trap, who could record confessions without flinching, who could watch the woman he'd once loved being driven away in handcuffs and feel only satisfaction at a job well done. But he'd also remain the kind of father who could tuck his daughter in at night, who could listen to her fears and validate them, who could build her a safe future even while tearing down the lies of the past. The truck's engine rumbled to life. Lila buckled her seatbelt, the key to their new house clutched in her hand. As they drove away from the lake, away from the scene of his victory and Tessa's defeat, Noah felt something he hadn't felt in months. Peace. He'd won, not through violence or emotion, but through the same methodical approach that had made him a successful engineer. He'd built his case the way he built his bridges, one careful calculation at a time, checking and rechecking, ensuring every piece was perfect before committing it to the structure. And in the end, that structure had held. Justice had been served. His daughter was safe. Their future was secure. Tessa would spend the next 15 years learning what it felt like to be trapped, to have your freedom taken away, to live with the consequences of underestimating someone. Every day behind bars would be a reminder of the man she tried to break, but couldn't. The man she thought she knew, but had never really understood. Noah drove through town toward their new house, Lila chattering beside him about decorating her new room, about the friends she'd invite over, about the life they'd build together. He didn't shout. He didn't rage. He didn't gloat. He simply drove forward, leaving the wreckage of his marriage in the rearview mirror, focused entirely on the road ahead. Because that's what survivors did. They adapted. They rebuilt. They won. And Noah Drayton was nothing if not a survivor.